Hey guys, and welcome back to Anzo. In this video, we're going to be talking about whether the Yankees should make Kyle Higashioka their main catcher over Gary Sanchez. Let's get into it. Higashioka is currently 31 years old. He's heading into his first year of arbitration, and he's making a little under $600,000. Gary Sanchez is 29 years old. He's heading into his last year right before free agency. He made $6.35 million last year, and most likely this upcoming season, he's going to be making around $8 million. When it comes to Gary, we think about his monster power. He has the most potential to have a great season with his bat. Even though it's hard to compare Kyle as a backup catcher to Gary Sanchez as a full-time catcher, and their numbers are definitely going to be way different, but I still wanted to take a look into their numbers and kind of project out and see what we can get. This past season, Gary had a 204 batting average and 383 at-bats. Higgy had a 181 batting average and 193 at-bats. So as you can see, Sanchez is basically at 400 at-bats and Higgy is at about 200. So let's just round up for the sake of this video and say that Gary Sanchez had 400 at-bats and Higgy had 200. If we look at it, that's basically half. So Higgy had half the season that Gary Sanchez had this past season. When it comes to batting average, there's not much of a difference. If we're going to look at a 181 batting average versus a 204, obviously you would rather have in the 200s at least. They both aren't the best hitters. Gary does have more pop with 23 home runs and in the past hitting much more, but Higgy had 10 home runs in half the season Gary did. So if we give Higgy a full season, I mean, he'll be around 20 home runs. Higgy had 29 RBIs, Gary had 54 RBIs. So, I mean, they're basically very close, very similar. Higgy hit into 4 double plays and Gary hit into 14 double plays. They both seem to be on the same strikeout pace, with Higgy being at 59 and Gary being at 121 strikeouts. Gary definitely walks more than Higgy, 52 walks. Higgy had about 17. But again, these numbers aren't that far off. If we give Higgy a full season, I mean, Higgy could compete with the numbers that Gary had, obviously assuming that he keeps up the same pace. If Higgy just provides some of that value, then we're talking about Higgy providing the same amount of offense as Gary Sanchez did. Now let's go into Higgy's thing, which is fielding. When we talk about Gary Sanchez, he hasn't had a positive season of defensive runs saved since 2018. In 110 games this past season, Gary had a negative 10 defensive runs saved. With 6 seasons with the Yankees, he has a negative 8 defensive runs saved in his whole career. Now, Higgy is the defensive guy. In 66 games, he had a positive 5 defensive runs saved. In 5 seasons as a catcher, he has 10 defensive runs saved for his career. There's no real comparison that you can make with Higgy's defense versus Gary's. Higgy just has him beat, and we can't really say the same for hitting. They're basically the same if we kind of just assume that Higgy will have the same amount of production that he did in his 200 at-bats. And if we look at the steamer projections, basically Kyle is projected to have a higher batting average, and if that's the case, then Kyle's definitely going to have a really solid season compared to Gary, where Gary's going to basically be projected to have similar numbers like he did the past season. To recap, yes, Gary can provide you a nice bat and give you some production, especially when he's hot. And if it were up to me, I'd rather have Higgy be the main catcher. Think of it this way. What does a few more home runs, a few more walks mean to you when your main catcher can't even save runs at the plate? If your main catcher is giving up runs, easy runs at the plate, what's the point of having a few extra home runs? I'd rather than just have a slightly lower bat, but a better defensive glove. Higgy will save you runs. Not only that, but he's preferred by our major ace, Garrett Cole. Not to mention that Higgy also speaks multiple languages, which also helps with the variety of pitchers that we're going to have up there, which is going to help with all the prospects that speak Spanish. And for everyone that loves Gary Sanchez, think of this. Would you rather give Gary $8 million for the same production that he gave you this past season, or give Kyle Higashioka around $1 million or $2 million for this upcoming season to give you basically basically the same offensive numbers, but way better defense. So we don't have embarrassing plays like how we did with the Mets when Gary just had to simply put his glove down to get the guy out. Just so embarrassing as a Yankees fan to do that with the Mets and everything. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but just ever since that point on, it's kind of just been a decline for me for enjoying Gary Sanchez as our catcher. And don't get me wrong, Gary Sanchez is one of the top catchers in the game right now. And why do I say that? Because there's not a lot of good catchers. It's a hard position to play and it's a hard position to perform at. So I'm sure Gary is doing his best and working every single angle he can every offseason to do better, but I just feel like it's not cutting it for me. This is his final season before he hits free agency. A lot of players really take that seriously because it's going to be their major payday if they perform really well. So Gary's going to be on top of his game this season. He's going to be trying his best to really put up some numbers so that he can get that long-term contract with a good amount of money. Definitely, he's going to get it next offseason. No doubt about it, a team is going to give him that. Now, whether it's going to be the Yankees, I don't know about that. Personally, I wouldn't sign Gary Sanchez to a long-term contract. Even though he will be one of the better offensive catchers out there, I'd rather go with a defensive catcher. And if Gary doesn't perform well this season, I could see the Yankees easily trading him in the deadline or keeping him as a bench bat and having Higgy be the main catcher. You're in the majors. You need to make those simple plays, especially as a catcher. You need to make them. We can't be having runs just go by even if we have the lead, because you never know what happens in baseball. And yes, Higgy won't win any Silver Slugger award and he's not getting any younger, but he could be a solid stopgap for our next catcher. In 2023, there's going to be a bunch of catchers up in free agency. So why not take a chance at maybe a Wilson Contreras or someone else that's on the market that maybe we can take a look into? And Higgy will not come at a huge cost. He's not going to be a free agent until 2025. And again, he's just going to be entering into his first year of arbitration, meaning that the Yankees won't have to pay him that much. Whether the Yankees go out there in 2023 to find a different catcher or they make a trade with a different team to get one, the Yankees will have options. And I think Gary Sanchez and the Yankees are going to say goodbye after the season or midway through the season. Yes, give Gary a chance this season. Make him your main starter. See what you can do, because again, you're paying him $8 million. You want him to work. Have Higgy as the backup and then little by little see what Gary can provide you. If Gary doesn't provide you anything crazy, then trade him and let's get some prospects, preferably catching prospects, and let's see what we can do in the future. Higgy will do, and whatever other backup we have for Higgy should be fine. But I do hope for Gary Sanchez's sake that he actually does perform this season and that we at least get our money's worth of $8 million. And if Gary performs and he's on point, it's going to be exciting to see. But again, I don't think I would sign Gary Sanchez, even if he had an amazing year. I don't know if I would sign him to a long-term deal. But let me know what you guys think. What would you do? Would you have Higgy over Sanchez, or would you do what I'm talking about, which is basically have Sanchez start off the season and then let's see how he does. If he doesn't perform, let's have Higgy take over and be our stopgap guy until next offseason where we can find a real replacement. Should we trade Gary if he sucks this season? Let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure to smash that like button like Giancarlo Stanton did against the Red Sox with that grand slam. And make sure to use code Anzo, A-N-Z-O, on SeatGeek to get $20 off your first purchase. That means $20 off any sporting event or really any concerts or things like that around your area. Who wouldn't want to save money? Make sure to use my code so you can save some money. And make sure to follow me at Anzo Media on Instagram and Twitter. Subscribe for more content. I come out with daily Yankees and baseball content. If you want to binge watch more Yankees or baseball content, well, you're in the right place. Make sure to check these out right here. I have a playlist and a video that's best suited for you. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. You're watching Anzo, and I'll see you guys next time.